Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Nicolette Pomper-van-Zyl, editor of ESI Africa, and your moderator for today's session. On behalf of my team at Clarion Energy and our guest speakers today, we hope that you, your families, and colleagues are well and safe. These are very different times that we are experiencing, and the utility industry has been tested in unprecedented ways by the COVID-19 pandemic. Utilities have had to quickly implement coping mechanisms and strategies to protect staff, customers, and their bottom line. But that adaptation has not been without financial, operational, and social challenges. Today, we are speaking to representatives from different organizations who are dealing with this new way of keeping services operational in an age of physical and social distancing. I'm pleased to introduce today's panel, who are Jonathan Achur-Bar, the Chief Executive Officer of Goodco in Ghana, Gadi Taj Ngahamba, the Head of Power at the African Legal Support Facility, hosted by the African Development Bank, Kadri Nassib, the Executive Director of Energy at the City of Cape Town in South Africa, who will be joining us a bit later, and Shamshir Mohammed Makoon, the Acting General Manager of the Central Electricity Board in Mauritius. So much, Gadi. I'd like to now ask Shamshir to give an outline of what the Electricity Board is doing in Mauritius.
Yes, good afternoon and welcome everybody to this webinar, and thanks to the panelists and to the organizers. I would like just to introduce, myself, Makoon Mohammed Shamshir. So I'm Acting General Manager of the Central Electricity Board, the utility in the country. And to situate, the country, we know Mauritius is a very small island, so we're a bit lost in the southern hemisphere of the Indian Ocean. So we are only about 2,000 square kilometers, and we have a population of around 1.2 million only. We may be having an amount of tourists equal to that amount of population yearly. So we have a GDP approximating around 10,500 USD per capita. We were some time back largely dependent on sugar industry, and today sugar industry has shrunk and it's only about 5% of the economy. The economy is standing mainly on today the tourist sector, which is a very important sector for the country. And we have some textile industry, we have some light industry, and ICT and BPO is coming up as a service sector. And with this, we have about 2,000 square kilometers of land, but we also have a jurisdiction of about an economic exclusive zone of about 4 million square kilometers of the sea, which we're still trying to tap in the future. This is a bit about the country. And now let me come to the utility itself. So the utility, as we are the only utility in the country which is allowed to sell electricity. So we own the network. We have a single buyer model with most of the IPPs having power purchase agreement with the utility. So we serve the country with a peak demand of around 510 megawatt peak, and an energy generation of yearly about 3,000 gigawatt hour. So most of our power generation is fossil based. So we are producing around 40% of that electricity from coal, 40% is coming from fuel oil, which all of them are imported. And fortunately, we have the sugar sector, which gives us some biomass. So we have about 12 to 13% of the biomass, which is burned for electricity generation. So we are not too fortunate with hydro. We have only about 3 to 4% of hydro power and about 3% remaining, which is solar and wind power. So the utility, we have about 2,200 employees, and the utility, we are comprised from power generation. That is, we own power stations. Mainly, the CB operates the fuel oil power stations. And most of the contracts with IPPs are based on coal and biomass production that is traditionally coming from the sugar sector. And we serve the country through our network. which is a high voltage network of a 66 kV transmission network going down the island. Just to say that we are used to what we call abnormal situations like cyclone, and we are resilient to cyclones, but we were never expecting something like the COVID. So we didn't have any resilience plan against COVID. So we can see that the network is standing strong right as it is right now. So we are distributing power to the customers. We have a customer base of around 450,000 customers, and out of which we can say more than 300,000 customers is residential customers. So the remaining are industrial and commercial customers. So we have been in a situation where we have had to continue to serve the country. What happened since the declaration of this pandemic reaching Mauritius, right from the 20th March, there's been the first indication for isolating the country, that is to cancel all the flights incoming and outgoing. And on the 23rd, there was a complete lockdown in the country. So we, on the very first lockdown day, soon after, we registered 7 cases, which were mostly imported cases. And as of today, the figure stands that we have 273 COVID positive cases. Unfortunately, we lost 7 of them, but we have 19 who have already recovered from the disease right now. So we are still struggling. And as head of the utility, I feel the responsibility and the pressure that we are trying day and night to keep the lights on. And this is something which is really demanding. And I take the opportunity to salute all my staff and technical operations staff to be available day and night to keep the power stations running, and with a minimum team to control the network. That is, from our main SCADA system, we have to maintain the power flow on the network. How we organized ourselves soon after this lockdown, so I had to unite, the team from the production department. So we continued with the shift operation at power stations. So they are given all the necessary health and PPE requirements, sanitizers, masks, distance between colleagues, and even gloves, whatever required. And we are still up to now operating all our power stations. Fortunately, we didn't have any major problems so far. We are only in an operation mode without any maintenance. So all the planned maintenance have been kept aside. And on the transmission side, so the network is being operated by a SCADA team, a minimum of 2 staff per SCADA, that is 6 staff rotating 8 hours to keep the network control on. Hopefully, we haven't had any problem with our IPP contracts that we have. We have many power stations running on coal, where we have been very satisfied with the operations. They have been also cooperating to keep the lights on in the country. And we can see that so far we've been able to supply the country and keep the lights on permanently so far. Knowing that, with the recent changes in technology, I don't know whether this happens elsewhere also. You remember some time back, the power line was copper cable. And whenever the power goes off, the copper line was there to give you telephone system. Today we have wireless, it's there, but most of the house, they have today optic fiber. And your telephone now is working on optic fiber. So whenever the power goes down, the telephone line also goes together with it. You only have the remote GSM system. So we are aware about this issue, and then we have more pressure on us because we are delivering power to light the country. Most of the people, they're at home and they need the comfort at home to be having electricity, and also to be able to communicate at the same time, to be able to remain in house comfortably. And we have registered as a whole, right from the lockdown day after, a drop in about 35 to 40% of the demand in electricity. This has been a huge and marked drop which we registered. This is mainly because our demand is driven in 3 different categories. We have the residential, the commercial, and then the industrial. Each of them, they normally make about a third of the demand nationally. What happened? The commercial sector stopped, and the industrial sector also stopped, with merely only a little of them operating. So we have had to register that drop in demand, and we are coping with the supply of electricity. And on top of that, we have had the difficulty for procurement of fuel. As I said, we are dependent on imports, and at some point in time, we're fearing that our cargo ship of coal was going to be locked down in South Africa before leaving the continent to come to deliver us coal. Fortunately, we had to get the connection through the ministry, the government, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to get the ship to leave South Africa and to be driving towards us. Fortunately, we got the fuel on time, and also our fuel oil is also reaching us on time. So on stock of fuel, we don't have any problems so far. But now, having said this, I will say that now we are working on a mode which we call the minimum technical operation mode. That is only the power station and the transmission network operating. Whenever there's a fault, all our customer service department, they are working from home. All the people, they are replying to all the queries from home. Everything is as if normal for the customers. And all the calls are being diverted to the teams on the ground, and the teams, they are not kept standing together. For security reasons and for safety reasons, they're staying at home. Whenever there are a number of calls coming in to go out for repairs, then one person will go out and collect the people around, go and intervene, and then go back and leave everybody at home. And the next day in the morning, then we do get a team out just to do what we call minor repairs and minor operations. So this has been working very well. And now we are planning now for a post-lockdown phase. Now, what is the post-lockdown phase for us? It's like COVID, apart from what we are all maybe a bit having hard time with COVID, but COVID has shaken all of us. It has shaken us in the way that we work, and it has given us the opportunity to reinvent ourselves. So I'm very surprised, and I'm also happy at the same time that my people have been very innovative. And within a week, it was incredible that I could see most of my operations being carried out from home by most of the staffs, and they have been very cooperative in that moment. Everybody uniting together and keeping the finance activities, the administrative activities at home, relaying through our main servers. And I have to say that our IT infrastructure has been very helpful for us. The IT infrastructure is from one of the subsidiary company which we created, which is called the CEB FiberNet Company Limited, which have been deploying fiber mostly around in all our customer service centers, in all our administrative buildings, in a way that we have connectivity on all our essential sites, the power stations, the substations, and we are using that to communicate with our main server. And remotely, people are working at home so that we can deliver all the services that we can from home. So the post-lockdown plan, which we are working on right now, which I expect to get ready before the lifting of the lockdown, which is supposed to be on the 15th of April, we will be ready with the post-lockdown plan. What I intend to do is in that same vein that we are now having people working from home, I will keep most of those who have been working from home to stay at home, to be safe at home, continue to work at home. Only those who can come at work, we are going to reduce the number of staff working together in office to keep social distance between themselves and to minimize people attending office. Only in the real important situation for important processes that we're going to have people in office working after the lockdown. So this plan is now on the table, and we hope that we're going to be able to set up a work plan with part of the staff working from home and part working in office. So in terms of the financial impact, right now we are now thinking of the impact that is going to have on the CEB revenue itself and the country itself at large. As Gadi mentioned, we have already registered a sharp increase in the value of the currency, the hard currency. Dollar and euros have gone up quite high. And all our imports, 80% of the import for fuel oil goes in hard currency. So that'd be a huge impact on us. And on the normally we have a turnover, a yearly turnover, which is about 400 million USD. And with 35% of the drop, this is mainly coming from the tourist sector. So from the day to the other, all the hotels have been shut down. There is no more hoteling activity. Some of the tourists who have been locked here in the country, they're still staying there, but not many. Most of them, they already went away. And I can see that we have had a lot of cooperation from the tourist sector. Now the tourist hotels, some of them are been retained for isolation centers for COVID plus patients. So we are now expecting people out of the job. Maybe I don't know how many of them are going to be out of the job, how many are going to depend on themselves. I'm expecting that difficulty is going to come for people to settle their bill at the end of the month. So many of them will not be able to do so right away. So we are working on a plan of how to give them the support, financial support, and the facility required to settle their bill over maybe some months, so that they can continue to recover over some time after the lockdown is over. So I will say we are still thinking over re-engineering ourselves. I mean, all of our values at the organization, all our processes at the organization, we have to rethink of all of that and find a new way of getting ahead with COVID, because COVID has taught us a lesson that we are all equal. In such a time, there is no one above any other. So we have to cope together and find a best strategy to move forward after COVID. So this is, I mean, how we have been coping with the situation so far, and hopefully let us pray that we'll move ahead together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shamir. That is a very detailed plan that you have. So much. We have a question around the energy transition. Shamshir, I will pose this question to you, and that is, most African countries are going through energy transition, which also impacts on skills development for current and future employees. So for current workforce, they need to upskill or reskill. What plans are in place for any training that needs to occur post-lockdown or even during the lockdown period?
Yeah, this is something which is very interesting, because it's now, the question poses right now about security of supply. How self-sufficient can we be in such kind of situation? I mean, in our context at the CEB, we have created a subsidiary 3 years back, which is called the CEB Green Energy Company Limited. So this company has been created especially for implementation of green energy projects, that is to tap in the local resource capacity, be it PV or be it wind power. So within the 3 years, we have already implemented a 2 megawatt PV farm, and we are in the process of implementing an 8 megawatt PV farm. We have also launched a project of 10,000 home solar PV kits of 1 kilowatt each to be set up on the roof of socially vulnerable people. We have elaborated SSDG, that is small scale distributed generation scheme, that is allowing each and every customer to have solar panels on their home. We have also come up with MSDG scheme, medium scale distributed generation, allowing all the commercial businesses and all the hotels to having PV systems hooked up on the network. So I think this is something which we have been doing for the past, I can say, nearly 10 years. And building capacity, I think this is a recommendation that I will give to anybody to try and to start, I mean, the new technology that is in front of us, because someday, somehow, after COVID, there'll be some time when there'll be no oil and no coal, because these are fossil finite fuels. So it's the right time to start rethinking and retraining all our staffs, because the pool of technicians and engineers that we have today, they are all skilled people who can be retrained. Set up, for example, training schools internally in the organization, which we have. So this is a good opportunity for us to start retraining our staff And definitely this is the turning point for us right now.
Thank you. Shamshir, I have a question that I think you can answer quite well because of the situation you're in, and that is asking to all of the countries in lockdown, have you started to experience localized network issues as the load has mainly shifted to residential areas? And is your distribution network not overburdened during this time?
Yeah, so very good, precise question, because what has happened recently, I said earlier that we registered about 35% drop in the national demand, and this was mainly due to commercial and industrial sector. But if being everybody confined at home, it's clear that all the kids and everybody are using, I mean, their laptop, they are communicating, they need their comfort. We have certainly registered an increase in demand in the residential area. And fortunately, we have a policy in our load flow on the low voltage network. That is, we never allow our transformers to be loaded up to more than 80%. So we always have a tracking on the network that whenever a loading comes to nearly 80%, we already trigger a project plan to replace the transformer with a higher capacity, or we divert the load. So we have to keep always the buffer of about 20% on each of the distribution transformers. So this has helped us a lot. And we have registered on certain areas load demand increase in residential area, going even to beyond the 20% margin that we had. And we have had on some localized places a fuse blown, and we have had to replace and divert some of the loads. There has been something which is real, which we experienced recently in our network. But fortunately, that margin of 80% has helped us a lot. And we need to have plans, what we call alternate setup. That is, whenever there's a problem on one line, we need to be able to supply from another feeder. This is what we call alternative setup arrangement. And this has been helpful to us, especially in these times.
On that, Shamshir, we have a question for you about how the tender evaluation is going, and how about the coming opening tender? Will both of them be postponed?
Yeah, I gather this question is for two major tenders which we have been running, one for a major plant and second one for the major transmission upgrade. And we have two level of tenders in Mauritius. I mean, the CEB, we have an internal tendering process for amount lower than 100 million rupees, which we do internally. But above 100 million rupees, we have to go out for the Central Procurement Board, which is a different authority than the CEB itself. So I believe this question is for those which are being evaluated at the level of the CPB. And we've got information, we contacted them, and they are out, they are operating. But the good news is that they are going to send communications to all those who have tendered in those two tenders, that their tenders will be kept, and all deadlines will be moved to further dates, and we will keep communication with them so that we can resume the tender evaluation once the lockdown is off. So consideration is being given to those who tendered in those two.
Shamshir, we would like to ask your thoughts around taking lessons from previous events, such as the 2007-2008 global recession. The audience member says, I think the demand will take 10 years to get back to the levels pre-COVID-19, or it may never recover. Your thoughts around that?
Yes, it's a very good question, in the sense that this question comprises of many aspects. That is, first of all, we have to analyze what are the drivers of demand that we have here. For example, in Mauritius, the main driver of demand is the tourist industry, first of all, and then you have the commercial sector, and then you have the residential. If you analyze the sectors one by one, for Mauritius, when we had this financial crisis, it affected a lot the tourist sector in terms of ability of people to get finance and their level of living. They were impacted. And in this case, this time there's been a lockdown where the impact might be more social. That is, people losing jobs, and people who are self-sustaining might find the economic recovery taking time. So they will be having difficulty to drive the demand again. So what I think is that this question cannot be answered only by utility or by one ministry. I think it's a more larger aspect. It's an economic aspect. That is, the government of the country has now to put in place in every sector what kind of support has to be given to each and every sector which are vital to the economy to revitalize them. So, for example, at some point in time, we have had what we call a stimulus package that was given to industry to allow them to survive. So do we need to give like some kind of a special tourist facility in terms of transportation, in terms of security of those people coming here? How are we going to attract them here to be able to drive the demand again? And those people who are going to be left aside by having their job lost, what can we do for those people to get them back into the system? So these questions have to be analyzed, I think, at a macroeconomic level, together with the finance, the department, the energy department. It's a more national manner. But driving from each sector, what are the drivers of demand, will dictate the policies that have to be put in place to attack this.
However, we have come to the end of our discussion, and so I take this opportunity to thank all of our speakers who gave up their time at a very short notice to be open about our experiences during this difficult time. And it is clear after today's discussion that we are all working together to support the industry and our employees, friends and family and customers across the full value chain. And we hope that you have had a few of your questions answered today. And I'd like to remind you that a recording of this session will be available on the ESI Africa website. Please stay safe, keep well, and we are overwhelmed by the show of support you have shown to us over this time, and trust that you can continue to show ours to you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you very much, Nicolette.
And goodbye.
Goodbye. Thanks to all the panelists. Yeah, thanks. Goodbye.
Bye.